Willkommen in einem anderen Fragens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case part 4 of my Napoleonische-Kriegsführung video series. In this case, or in this video, I'll be covering the initiative phase. During the initiative phase, both players place reinforcements and determine initiative in that order. The fire and movement order is determined also during this phase. Before we actually get to the sequence of play, before the game begins, players determine the type of game being played, who's the defender, who's the attacker, and of course any kind of reinforcement schedules. This will be generally outlined in the scenarios. Now, in addition to this, I'll be creating a card-based, scenario-based system which will replace this stage in the future, and that will provide you with the same thing: who's the attacker, who's the defender, and also your reinforcement schedule. Let's now get to the reinforcement subphase. Players deploy all reinforcements. These are either placed on the friendly player edge, or if the element is rallying or recovering, on the playing area in base-to-base contact with their commanding officer or general. An attacker's initial forces, which are normally not deployed on the playing area before the play begins, must be deployed by the first daylight game turn. Reinforcements which arrive from off the playing area enter the playing area from the friendly player edge. Typically, if possible, the entry location must be free of enemy opportunity fire zones. The player can delay the entry of his reinforcements by one game turn and enter from a flank edge within 15 centimetres of the friendly player edge accordingly. This option is not available to the attacker's initial forces. Elements which rally are placed on the playing area. This is covered in more detail in the actual rally rules, which is a different video. During the initiative phase, each player will spin a d6. This is added to the commanding headquarters, or CNC, quality, and any scenario-related modifiers are applied accordingly. The player with the highest modified initiative chooses to be either the first or second player for the current game turn. If the result is identical, repeat the player order of the previous game turn. A player which outnumbers his opponent's element total by 20% on the playing area gains a +1 to the initiative die roll. Note, this includes any elements which are arriving in the current game turn and are on the player edge. Let's look at an example. In this case, the French player spins 5 and his highest level commander, basically the CNC, has a quality rating of 4, adding this value to his initiative die roll, which results in a value of 9. The Austrian player spins a 4 and his highest level commander, the CNC, has a quality rating of 2. Adding these values to his initiative die roll results in a value of 6. The French player would now have the initiative. If the Austrians has 60 elements and the French only 40 elements, the Austrians would gain a +1 as the Austrians outnumber the French by 20% or greater. However, even in this case, the French player retains the initiative. The combined d6 die rolls of both players during this phase determines whether, if the die roll is a 2, that's basically meaning each player spins a 1, the weather improves if it's poor. That it basically means blizzards turn to snow, snow to clear, or heavy rain to rain and rain to clear. If the combined value is 12, that is, both players spin a 6, the weather deteriorates, reversing the weather order. In simple terms, if both players spin a 1, weather improves, and if they both spin a 6, weather deteriorates. Let's now look at an example of this. The French player spins a 6 and his highest level commander, CNC, has a quality of 4. Adding this value to his initiative die roll results in a total value of 10. The Austrian player spins a 6 and the CNC has a quality of 4. Add them together and we get a 10. In this example, the player order remains the same as the previous game turn. Because both players have spun a 6, the weather now deteriorates by 1 level. Typically, the weather will be clear, so it'll probably move to rain or snow, depending on the weather condition. Weather has an effect on observation distances. In this case, visibility will reduce from 10 base widths to 8 base widths in rain or snow if daylight, as you can see here. Weather can also impact fire combat. In this case, there is a -1 when conducting a fire combat in snow or rain. Weather also affects close assault. In this case, there is a -1 when attacking or close assaulting in rain or snow. If the player's modified initiative die roll difference is 5 or greater than his opponent, then he gains an Elan bonus. All that player's elements are allowed an additional 1 action to a maximum of 3. Commanders with a quality of 1 or 2 can execute 2 actions with no quality test required, and the third only requires a quality test. Other commanders can conduct 3 actions. For Elan bonus purposes, any modifiers are not considered. In the original standard game, when you're not using a scenario or the card-based system, the way you determine who is the attacker and the defender is that both players spin 2d6, adding it to their headquarters quality level. Player with the higher value is considered the attacker, the other is the defender. The defender identifies one commander with at least 25% of all the elements in the defender's force mix as reinforcements. They come later. The game turn this arrives is the defender's 2d6 results. So if they spin a 6, the reinforcements arrive on game turn 6, excluding any modifiers. This represents the standard scenario system. A card-based system will be provided in the future which can be used as an alternative, and there will be historical scenarios you can use. Players can pick whichever method they think is appropriate to start off a game. Let's now look at the commanders. Each commander, general, that is CNC or sub-commander, will have a number of designated subordinate elements. The only exception is the CNC, who has the option of not possessing any subordinate elements or possessing subordinate elements based on what the player decides. Subordinate elements of a sub-commander must always remain subordinate to that sub-commander unless the CNC decides to make them a subordinate element. This can happen during any game turn during the game, and these elements must be within the command radius of the CNC. This transfer of subordinate element occurs at the start of the CNC's activation. Once these elements become subordinate to the CNC, this must remain during the entire phasing, fire and movement phase of the current game turn. The reverse can also occur, with any sub-commander being able to subordinate any element under CNC command at the start of their respective activation. These elements must have been subordinate to the CNC at the start of the phasing, fire and movement phase. Obviously, if these elements have been activated prior to this, they can't do anything, even though they may now become subordinate to a new commander. The CNC can adopt or make any element subordinate within its command radius, as long as these elements have not yet been activated in the current player phase. The reverse can also occur in the following game turn, allowing the CNC the ability of moving subordinate elements around his army. Elements which begin the game subordinate to the CNC can be allocated to subordinate sub-commanders as required, providing the player with a form of reserve which can be used. We'll be covering command points in more detail at a later point or a different video, but the commanders expend command points in order to activate combat units, or for an activated combat unit to execute a close assault. A commander's available command points is equal to its quality, so a commander with a quality of 3 possesses 3 command points, each fire and movement phase. This may be modified by its personal skill or professional skill value. In all cases, sub-commanders can never transfer command points between each other. A sub-commander has a number of command points, and that's all they have, with of course the exception that they can be given command points from the CNC. A CNC, or Army Commander, which has not yet been activated, can transfer its command point to any subordinate sub-commander within its command radius. This needs to be noted and affects the number of command points available to the CNC when it is, in turn, activated. This is the only method command points can be transferred between commanders, from a CNC to a sub-commander. And so we come to an end of this rather short video, part 4 of my video on Napoleonische-Kriegsführung rules, in this case looking at the initiative phase. Alle guten Dinge, kommen zu einem Ende.